big is this one?
Probably both. I mean, every game, every game you play has an element of something to it. We were getting ready for Providence, and somebody said, "Oh, it's probably a pretty good game to play before you play South Carolina. You can, probably rest some of your guys. You won by a lot last time." Shouldn't be. They wore us out. We couldn't even walk at the end of the game. So every game's got its own issues. This is different simply because it's a non-conference game. It's, they're the number one team in the country. They're undefeated and all that, And we've played in a million of these games. And they've always been fun to play. They've always been entertaining. There's always been some great performances, and I would expect the same thing to happen on Sunday.
Is this one of those rare games, really rare for you and your team, where you're really considered the underdog, and maybe you don't have anything to lose, and you can kind of play with some abandon, so to speak. Is this that kind of game for you, and how's that playing in the locker room?
Well, it's complicated because if you take on that role of the underdog, you're almost saying we don't really have a chance to win, so let's just go out and give it our best. And whatever happens, happens. Which, that doesn't fly over here no matter what, right? So if you just go out and you just play, whatever happens, happens. They beat your ass by 100. Now they go back home, and if everything goes according to our plan, I'm sure they've got the same plans. Something like this is going to happen again in March. You hope. At least I hope we're in that situation. I know they're going to be in that situation, but I hope we get enough people back that we're in that situation. So you want to play a game tomorrow that's kind of indicative of okay, if this was an NCAA tournament game, how would we respond? Even though it's not. And really, if you lose by 2 or you lose by 32, what's the difference? If you win by 1 or you win by 21, what's the difference? I don't think tomorrow, is going to have quite the intensity level that last year's national championship game had. Different lineups, different circumstances. You're playing for the whole thing. But for a February game, the week before the Super Bowl, we're going in there and saying, we're playing at home. We're playing in front of 15,000 people. If we weren't good enough to win, I would have made a phone call and said, we're not quite ready. Maybe we should, I'd have spread some COVID cheer around the locker room or something,
Do you like to
How
use?
much or little do you bring up that national championship?
Well, let's say we had everybody back from that team. And, you actually could make a big deal out of it. But since, Dorka didn't play in that game, Lou didn't play in that game, Gianna didn't play in that game, Aubrey didn't play in that game. So there's really very little to compare it to, other than we know their style of play, we know how they're going to play, we know what their strengths are, and that's not going to change regardless. Whatever their strengths were, we saw them all in the championship game. And then even more so because they've got probably more depth this year than they've had since I can remember.
Going off of that, they're pretty much nearly double the amount of bodies you guys are playing with. How important is just distribution for that?
Well, if we could arrange the game to be played like Super Bowl, after every play, we get to come over to the bench, just talk it over, run the next play. And if we could do that, then maybe, you know, playing 5 or 6 or 7 guys could be the difference. But since the game is not played that way, there's nothing you can do about it. You know, we have to do a good job of controlling the tempo of the game, you know. So if the game is played, you know, I don't mean necessarily like, you know, 42 to 40, but if the game is played where we're operating on our own terms, like we're running transition because we want to, we're playing fast because we want to, not because we're forced to, because they're dictating to us how we're going to play. So I think we've got to do a pretty good job of knowing when to, when not to, and mix some things up defensively and offensively. And as it does in every basketball game, you know, they're going to win the rebound battle. So you have to make enough shots to offset that. It was a really low-scoring game 2 years ago when they came up here, and it went into overtime. You know, so that was kind of a weirdly slow game, and some have been very fast-paced. You know, I remember the games we played against them. You know, Fisa and Lou and Stewie and them were really fast. And I don't know that tomorrow we can try to be as fast as them for an entire game.
So if it becomes a half-court game, you comfortable with it?
It depends. If it's a half-court game and every other possession we have a shot clock violation, no. I won't be really comfortable with it. But at least they'll be inbounding the ball and not getting out of live turnovers for layups. So, yeah, I don't like playing half-court game, the whole game, you know. And I don't think we can recklessly run up and down the floor either. So I think it's got to be, you know, mix up the pass and the run. Let's put it that way.
You've known Dawn for whole basketball life, essentially. I guess since she was a teenager, probably. You've had all kinds of basketball experiences with her. Just how have you seen her evolve from a good leader as a player to a good leader of a coach of 2 programs now?
Well, I think like every player, you know, when players become coaches, I think they fall into 2 categories, and sometimes both at the same time. They're already smarter than every coach they've ever played for. So, you know, when I get to be a head coach, this is how I'm going to do it, and I'll show everybody that I'm smarter than the average coach. And at the same time, there's a little bit of, you know, leeriness, like, can I really do this? So you start to find yourself, you know, and it's interesting that how you evolve, though, into now, you know, she's a little bit older, been around enough national championship games, and you know, coached at the highest level at the Olympics and had to deal with that and the pressure that comes from that. I think it gives you a different perspective. You know, I think once you've been through all that, I think you're not as cocky as you used to be. You're not as self-assured as you used to be, because you know what the pitfalls are. You know, when you're young, you think anything's possible. You know, you can do anything. You can beat anybody, anytime, anywhere, you know. So I think Dawn is, you know, taking the progression of a young player who becomes a young coach, who grows into it, and then just keeps getting better and better and better and better. And with that comes a little bit of an appreciation for just how difficult this job really is. Because in the beginning, you don't think it's that hard, you know, until you win a national championship and then can't get back there for a couple of years, and then you start to go, damn, this is hard. So I think she's, you know, she's got a great staff, and she's, you know, She's not a young kid anymore. She's not a young coach anymore. She's a mature, older statesman in our game. We don't have a lot of them.
You like to use this game as a measuring stick to see where your team is. Is that even possible given the amount of injuries? Or can you do it because you might be getting back the two on the play?
Well, I mean, it can be a measuring stick. What if we don't get any of them back?
Right.
Then we got to go with what we got right now. So it can be, but I mean, you really can't judge what happens a lot of times from 1 week to the next, from 1 month to the next, because things do change. Things change quickly in our game. Like I said, Providence came here and it was, a 50-point win. And then all of a sudden circumstances are different and we're up there and it's a 5-point game with, 2 minutes left. So things change over a period of time. So I think you just got to take it, from my standpoint, I think you just got to take it for Sunday's game for what it's worth. Because right after that, we're at Marquette and at Georgetown, and both of them are a pain in the ass to play. So, and we just got off of that, 4 games in 9 days or whatever the heck it was.
5
and 11, 5 and 12. So it's not getting any easier for us. So it's not like we can go out there Sunday and put our whole season on the line and say, okay, this is going to define who we are. And then, Wednesday, we find ourselves getting blown out by Marquette or something, So we got to take it. And the more I'm in this, the more I realize this is not this. I know it's only 30-some games if you're lucky, 35, 36, 37. But I think for sanity's sake, for the players and for the coaches, you got to take the emotion out of all this. You can't coach emotionally. You can't make every play, every possession, every dribble, every pass. And trust me, I lived that life for 20-some years, 30 years maybe. I think it's self-destructive and it's counterproductive. It really is. I think you got to take it almost like a pro coach. We got a game Sunday. Let's see what happens. Win by 10, yo man, we got a tough one on Wednesday. Lose by 20, yo guys, put it away. We got a tough one on Wednesday. That's the only way you can keep your wits about you in this, in this job anymore. Because everybody's fragile, everybody's a little bit sensitive, and you don't want one win to think, well, we won, so let's just cruise to the Final Four and the national championship. Well, we lost. Let's, pack our stuff up. The season's over. There's no point to it. So I've gotten a little bit smarter as I've gotten older to realize that. I used to think when the Tennessee series was really flying and we played them twice, I used to think, every year we beat Tennessee during the regular season, for the most part, we win a national championship because they know they can't beat us now. But it didn't happen all the time, but it happened most of the time. And you could say, well, that game's a real measuring stick. 2 teams evenly matched, But I think those days are over now. There's too many other good teams. There's too many things that could happen. There's too much change. No. I think Sunday's going to be a lot of fun because there's going to be an awful lot of people at the game. A lot of people are coming to see and be seen, as I like to say now, A lot of interesting people are going to be in the stands, and
Becoming like a Laker game, huh?
I just think we're fortunate to be in a situation where when we play the right team, this is kind of commonplace for us. The right team at the right time, it's a big deal all over the country.
In terms of what you just mentioned of, not playing into, emotions as much as maybe you would earlier in your coaching career, has that changed kind of the approach with whether, you're trying to use that title game loss as motivation or anything like that? Like, has that changed too, if not playing as much into the emotions?
I don't know that motivation is as big a deal today, because it's different. It's different things. It's different times. It's different eras. I think the motivation at this point in our career here at Connecticut in our program, if you need to be motivated when you put on a Connecticut jersey and go out in front of 15,000 and play the #1 team in the country, then you're at the wrong place, and no amount of motivational speeches is going to change that. So at this point in our lives, we have to count on the fact that we're getting the type of kids who that's what they came here for. First time since the season, I saw Paige and AZ really affected and torn up at Tennessee, not being able to play in that game. That's what you come here for, those kinds of games. So nobody's going to walk into that game on Sunday and go, I wasn't up for the game. I need something to motivate me. Nah. No.
Geno, do you think that the cohesion that you guys obviously have from all the shared experiences, the injuries, 5 games in 11 days, came through all that, do you think that maybe gives you an advantage, or maybe offsets whatever advantage they have in just the athleticism, size, physical talent? That you guys the togetherness might play in your favor?
Yeah, that togetherness is great. 5 people touch the ball, but the 3 guys that make the most of those threes, they're not playing. So all that togetherness is great, and we can have, s'mores afterwards at the campfire and say, boy, are we together or what? You still need somebody to make shots for you. The thing that we always thrive on is how well we play together, right? Well, what I noticed, like against Tennessee, right? We come out, we get 33 in the first quarter. And you go like, how's that possible with all those guys, all those scorers on the bench? Well, it was like that. It was like too easy. Then obviously the second quarter was a disaster. But I noticed that when we get tired, when fatigue sets in, we have no cohesion. Guys aren't thinking the same. I'm really tired, you're not. I'm moving, I'm standing. I'm thinking ahead, you're still thinking about the last play. So that cohesion tends to go away when you become mentally fatigued, or you just can't make that hard cut anymore. And I found that to be the case in some of the games that we've played, lately. So that's something we have to guard against, and I don't know how you guard against it. I don't know how you guard against it. Calling my timeouts. I think it was Maryland, didn't it? Maryland, I think fourth quarter started, I was out of timeouts. The Maryland game, I used them all up. So, got a lot of TV timeouts. I got to use all my timeouts. I got to bring back the old lost contact, 5 minutes to look for it. Now they have it listed on the scoreboard, on the scorebook, I think, who wears contacts, who doesn't, because all the cheaters. So I got to make sure it's somebody that actually wears contacts. Just figure out a way. That's all there is to it, man. Figure out a way.
Dawn was saying last night that her senior class has been able to flip the script a little bit. They finally beat you guys in the neutral court a few times, and they're really looking forward to potentially winning at UConn. Is it still flattering to you that other programs view an accomplishment against UConn as kind of a bar for their program's progression?
Well, I would say that that's probably accurate. It's obviously winning at home is great. Winning on a neutral court is great. But when you win on the road, against a really good team that has a tradition that we have, it means a lot. And you can tell the way teams celebrate on our home court when they do win, that it's not just any regular season win. So yeah, there were a lot of guys that played at South Carolina that never had a chance to beat us home, neutral, away, NCAA tournament, regular season. So for this group to have come to that point, you know, that's kind of how things evolve. If your program gets really good and you keep adding to it and adding to it, and players start to expect it, you know, maybe there was a time when, you know, Asia Wilson's crew, when they didn't think they could beat Stewie and those guys, and now, you know, they've got a group of guys that they think they come up here, they should win up here. So that's where your program gets to when you get to a certain level. And you have to bring those kinds of kids in. You can't do it any other way. You know, but yeah, I mean, a win on the road against a quality team with great tradition on national television, it's a big deal. It's different than any other game you play. I mean, they played at Stanford, right? I mean, no disrespect to anything, but it's a little different, right?
I think that some of your victories were so emphatic over them too, like up to 2018. I think you beat them by 30-something in the regular season, 30-something in the Elite Eight. That's probably good.
Yeah, I'm sure that left them in a state of like, we got to get over that hump, and what's it going to take? And it usually takes two things. You know, it takes them bringing in a couple kids that aren't going to, you know, just aren't going to live with that any longer. And it takes us bringing in a couple kids that kind of weren't part of that and don't remember what it takes to win a game like that. And it's a shame that all the fans that had expected to see, you know, our potential team and their team, you know, square off on a Sunday afternoon on national television and how big it would be. But unfortunately, that's not the case, but that hasn't diminished people's excitement for the game. You know, certainly.
What kind of opportunity is this for Aaliyah to go against a South Carolina post like Aaliyah Boston?
It's the same one she had in the championship game last year, and the same one she had in the Bahamas, and the same one she had freshman year when we played them here in the bubble. You know, these opportunities, they come along and you got to take advantage of it. And, you know, I've had kids play for me that were undersized and couldn't wait to play against kids bigger than them, to prove to them that they were better. And then I've had kids that play for me that are a little bit undersized and wanted no parts of kids bigger than them. It's weird how that works. So I think Aaliyah's excited about this. You know, I saw her today and she's got this look on her face like, I'm ready to play. I really want to play. She wasn't happy with the way she played in the Providence game, was so-so in the Villanova game, was great in the Tennessee game. So I think she's like had a little bit of a lull, and I think she's looking to ramp this one up a little bit. And we need her. You know, I said there's two people that can affect this game more than anybody else, and that's Aaliyah and Aubrey. Those two can really impact this game in our favor. They can help us, I think, more than everybody else on our team. So we need both of them to play great. Everybody needs to play well, but we need both of them to play great.
Geno, along those lines, when it comes to Nika and Aaliyah, who were part of, you know, that national championship matchup, what have you enjoyed really about their development coming into a game like this, where you're shorthanded again and you've had to lean on them to really help bring it home?
Well, they were never the older, more experienced kind of elder statesmen of the team. And now they are. So they act like it. So Nika doesn't have to defer to anybody. She knows whatever I say goes. I run the show, and She's driving it right now. And she doesn't have to score any points to drive it. And Aaliyah, when she's playing at a real high level on her effort and how hard she rebounds and runs the floor, and you know, some of the stuff that we've seen her do this year, you say, well, those two have been here the longest and have played the most basketball at UConn. And that's what you would expect from those two. And they've been more than you could even expect. I couldn't ask any more of both of them. And then, you know, I told Nika the other day, after the Providence game, I said, man, I've been up all night trying to figure out how to get you open threes since you're the only one that can make them now. She actually thought I was serious.